Thank you all so much for coming, and thank you for Ding Darling for having me. It's a beautiful area. I've never been here before, so thank you.
Oh, really?
Yeah, thank you for the excuse to come up.
Right.
So let's get started. I'm going to talk about invasive lionfish. I like doing a poll beforehand, just on a show of hands, like 1 to 5. How much do you guys know about lionfish? 1, you're not even sure if it's a fish. 5, you should be up here giving this talk right now. 1, 2, 2, 4, 3, 5. I see a 5. Bold. Good. Okay, great. So just to start off, I work with Reef. We are a marine conservation nonprofit based out of Key Largo. We have 3 main programs. Our longest running program is our volunteer fish survey project, where we give divers and snorkelers the tools and education to go out and identify fish species and then do abundance surveys. And then they can take that information back. They put it in a database that we have on our website, and it's the largest marine sightings database in the world. And it's been used in over 50 different scientific publications now. And it's helped with a lot of conservation projects, so we're really happy about that one. We just, right at the end of last year, we just got our 200,000th fish survey in the database. That was very exciting for us. We're up to 202,000 now. Anyways, then we have our Grouper Moon project, which is run by our Director of Science out of Scripps. And every year, actually last month, they went to the Cayman Islands, and they go and they observe and study the last known Nassau grouper spawning aggregation in the Cayman Islands. They've been doing a lot of really good research, understanding the larval stages and where those eggs go after the spawning and how many of those eggs actually can become viable Nassau grouper. And it's very important since that species is so endangered now. And then we have the invasive lionfish program, which is the one that I assist with, and that started in 2006 when Reef stepped in and started working with the government and NOAA to formulate a best practices document and some kind of management document for governments all over the region, all over the affected region, to start managing the invasive population. Reef has over 60,000 members now. If you want to become a member, it's free. We just send you an e-newsletter every month letting you know what we're up to, the latest research that's going on, and it's a lot of fun. And then you get access to the database and all the fish sightings. So anyways. So this is what we're here to talk about today. If all of you that put up a 1, this is what a lionfish looks like. They are very invasive to this region. They were first introduced here around 1985. They were not the only or the first non-native species in Florida. South Florida is actually a hotspot for non-native fish species. We've seen all of these throughout South Florida, but most of them were seen once or twice and then never saw them again. They couldn't survive in this new habitat. Most of these, or all of these, we postulate were brought in through aquarium releases. We have a lot of aquarium owners in South Florida, and once they're done with their fish, I guess they dump them into the ocean, and that's how we see these species. There are so many non-native fish species that they actually wrote a book about it. I don't think it's in print anymore, but if you ever come down to the Reef office in Key Largo, we can show you. We have a couple. The lionfish, however, through aquarium releases, we believe, did become established, and it is the first established marine invader in our region. And because it was the first, we had no protocol. We had no precedent of how to deal with this issue, and we had to start from scratch with management strategies. Lionfish are from the Indo-Pacific. There's actually 2 different species that have invaded the region. There's the red lionfish and the devil firefish. And they come just from this area, the green and the blue, and then over there, that's the invaded territory. And the hatching, that is how far we believe they could invade if they reach their full potential. They have a very wide thermal tolerance. They can survive in waters as cold as 50 degrees, so they have quite a large lateral range. This is just a little graphic. You can see time moving up at the top, and it shows kind of just the spread of the lionfish invasion. Like I said, the first sighting was in 1985 off of Dania Beach, Florida. And then in the early 2000s, it started taking off. It came back down the East Coast to the Bahamas. 2007 was a really huge explosion. That's when the populations really took off. And then now they're all the way to the Gulf of Mexico. So they went up the eastern seaboard first, over to Bermuda, back down to the Bahamas, into the Caribbean, and finally their last destination so far is the Gulf of Mexico. I'll let this run through one more time. USGS was great to make this for us. We use this a lot. It's a very powerful image, but as you see at the top, it only goes to 2013. So I asked them a couple months ago if they could come up with a 2015 map, just to show people the extent now, and this is what they sent us. So they've stopped using dots. There's no reason to use dots anymore, except up there in the north. It's completely inundated. These maps were created off of sightings that were put into a USGS database, and there have just been so many sightings throughout the region that now this is what the map looks like. And I forgot to mention before, but if you guys have any questions, just raise your hand and ask as we go along. You don't have to wait till the end or anything. So the way that lionfish have spread so quickly and over such a great distance in such a short time is they produce buoyant egg masses. So it isn't the adult lionfish that are running up the eastern seaboard and down through the Bahamas. It's their egg masses that are brought up the Gulf Stream and back down and through all the other eddies, and that's how they've invaded such a large area. So when this invasion first started, we thought, let's go back to the source. Let's see if there's what the research says about lionfish in their native habitat. But there really hasn't been any research done on lionfish in their native habitat. It's just not something that anyone's done. The only research we could find of any significance was done in 1978 by this man, Lev Fishelson, at Tel Aviv University. And he did density studies. And he found that in the Red Sea, you could find about 80 lionfish per hectare. And in the Marquesas, it was about three lionfish per hectare. So pretty rare. They're quite fun to see in their native habitat. If you go diving, dive masters will point them out. It's very exciting. We did a study, or we helped with a study in 2009, I believe, where we went with Dr. Stephanie Green out of Oregon State University, and we went to the Bahamas, and we did some density studies there. And we found over 400 lionfish per hectare in the Bahamas. That area is pretty inundated, very inundated. There isn't any management protocol being put in place in the Bahamas, so they've pretty much just run rampant. If we were to take these numbers and try to estimate what they would be today, years later, it would just be through the roof. Their numbers have not stopped increasing since 2009. Have any of you seen lionfish in the wild before out here? Yeah? Where did you guys see them? What habitat?
Bonaire.
In Bonaire? Yeah, off of the reefs? Yeah. They love reefs. Lionfish love structure. They love any kind of vertical or horizontal structure. They've been seen on artificial reefs, on wrecks. They love wrecks. They've been seen in mangroves. They've been seen in 3 inches of water off of a beach. And they've been seen in 1,000 feet of water by submarines. They have quite a large range there also. They've actually also been seen on oil rigs. Some oil rig maintenance workers, the men or women who have to go down and dive deep and do regular maintenance on these oil rigs, are reporting to OSHA that they're being stung by lionfish, which is an incredibly dangerous thing to have happen at 300 feet. So that's another big problem. Here they are. Again, they love structure. They just like to rest on their pectoral fins, just on any kind of vertical or horizontal structure, and that's where you'll find them. The smallest lionfish that we've seen collected was 24 millimeters, very, very small. We actually sent that off to get it aged, and we haven't heard back yet, but hopefully soon. And the largest was 477 millimeters. in their native range, they really only get between 320 and 350 millimeters. So they're growing bigger here, and it's because they are eating so much more here than they need to. Most fish go through what's called an ontogenetic shift, and that means that when they're in their juvenile phase and they're more vulnerable to predation, they stay in the mangroves and they stay protected, and then once they're big enough, they'll move out to the reef. Lionfish don't do this. You can find any size lionfish in any area that they have invaded. They don't worry about that. Yes?
Could you translate millimeters into inches for us?
Kind of. So the largest lionfish was almost 19 inches. And the smallest, well, I mean, it's probably an inch, right? I think. Yeah. Yeah, but the largest is just under 19 inches. Pretty big for these fish shapes. This is a little video. It might be a little spotty, but what we did when we first started researching lionfish is we did what's called a mark recapture study. So we actually caught lionfish and we tagged them. We live caught them in nets, and then we went with a buddy that we really trusted, and we took them out of the bags and we measured them. And then we tagged them. We took a hollow point needle and pierced them through their caudal peduncle. I know, ouch. It's a little brutal. I feel a little bad for them. No, I shouldn't. And then we put a little tag in. It's just a little orange ribbon. You'll see in a second. But this video runs a little bit long because we're fumbling with the tags.
So with the hand, I thought they stung you, or?
They do.
Is that not
Does he have
dangerous
gloves
to do with
on?
the hand?
They do. He has a glove on this hand here. They have 18 venomous spines. I'll talk about it later, but we are definitely being careful in this video. We know where the spines are. We know how they move. So yeah, it's something that we are definitely aware of.
So are you finding these in the mangroves or inshore as well?
Yes, not as much, but yes, you can definitely find them in the mangroves. So we placed the tag. We did about 160, I think it was 169 fish were tagged. And then
In what area?
this was in the Florida Keys.
In the Keys.
Mhm. And we wanted to understand their growth rates. We wanted to understand how fast they grew, and we also wanted to understand their site fidelity, so how long they'll stay on one site. And we found that lionfish grow incredibly quickly. They can grow up to 9 inches in a year. Thankfully, their growth is inversely related to their size. So the bigger they get, the slower they will grow. But when they are first growing, they'll grow very quickly, especially with how many of our native fish they're eating. Yes?
What is their food source?
They eat everything. They are what's called a gape-limited predator, and that means literally they will eat anything that fits into their mouths. They eat all of our native fish species. We've found crabs in their stomach, we've found squid, mostly reef fish, mostly small or juvenile reef fish. So they have a very high site fidelity also, which means that they'll stay in one area if they can. In the Bahamas, on these patch reefs that we've studied pretty regularly, we found that some lionfish will just stay on a patch reef until it's eaten everything else that is there, and that is when it will move on. They have no need to move. So that's what that study found. Lionfish impacts. So what is scary to you about this picture?
There's too many of them.
That's all there.
Yes, there are so many lionfish in this very small area, and there are no other fish. It's just lionfish, except for maybe these little scaredy fish back here. But they're staying far away from the lionfish. Like I said, lionfish are a gape-limited predator. They eat anything that fits inside their mouth. We've found over 100 different of our native species in lionfish stomachs when we've done gut content analysis, and they can consume prey over half their own body size. Their stomachs can expand an incredible amount. When we're diving, we'll see lionfish that look like they're pregnant, but it's just because their stomachs have expanded so far because they've eaten so much. They are eating economically important species like our snapper and our grouper. They're eating ecologically important species, the species that keep our reefs healthy, like parrotfish and shrimp. And they're eating recreationally important species, the species that people will come to Florida to pay to see. They'll come and they'll dive or they'll snorkel to see these fish. So they're impacting a lot of different groups here. Not only fish species, they're also impacting us. They're also impacting our lobster fishery. Lionfish are seen in lobster traps all the time. Lobstermen find lionfish in their traps with regularity, and that's a big problem. Not as much room for lobsters. This lionfish consumed 21 different prey fish. Again, I mean, you can see how big these fish are in comparison to the lionfish stomach, which is actually just this little thing right here. So they can eat an incredible amount in an incredibly short amount of time. This lionfish was caught off of Key Biscayne, and it ate 64 little prey fish, mostly scad, and it had a shrimp in its stomach. And you can see that these fish have all been digested at about the same rate. They were all eaten in a very short amount of time. So they're just incredible predators, unfortunately. This is another study we did with Dr. Stephanie Green in the Bahamas, and we went to these patch reefs and we counted and measured every single one of our native fish that we saw on these patches. It took a long time, but it was helpful in this study. And then we went back a couple years later and we did the same exact thing. Same methods, we went out, we counted the fish, we understood the abundance, and we found that there was an average of a 65% decline in native species biomass and up to a 95% decline in native species biomass on those patch reefs. So they have an incredible impact. We're seeing a lot of situations like this. This is in the Bahamas again. Like I said, the Bahamas are incredibly impacted. I was in the Bahamas 2 days ago. We're working on another study right now where we're trying to understand their affinity for structure more. So we were there, and this is a video I took 2 days ago. This is just along a pipeline, just in the middle of a sound. And in about a 3 square foot area, there were 6 fairly large lionfish. Sorry for my bad underwater video skills.
Have you been stung?
I have, yes, yeah.
Is it nasty?
It's incredibly painful, yes, yeah. Oh, that's not important. Yes, but you'll see they're found in very large numbers, and they'll kind of huddle together. You'll find little nests of lionfish. They're growing in higher densities. They're growing in larger numbers here. They're taking over all habitats, like I said. They're at all depths. They've been seen at 1,000 feet by submarines. They're seen around docks. And they have a wide thermal tolerance. So this is kind of a perfect storm for an invader. They are tolerant to most environmental factors that are thrown their way, and they can reproduce at an incredibly quick rate. One of the reasons that they're so successful is they are venomous. Lionfish have 18 venomous spines. They have 13 along their dorsal, they have dorsal spines, 13 dorsal spines. They have 1 on the leading end of each pelvic fin, and then they have 3 on the leading edge of their anal fin. So they are pretty well protected all around. There we go. 13 dorsal spines, and then anal spines on the leading end here, and then along their pelvic fin. The way that the envenomation works is that, as you can see in this picture and up here more clearly, there's this thin tissue that covers lionfish spines. And once that tissue is disrupted, there's glandular tissue that covers the entirety of the spine. So the whole spine is venomous, not just the tip. And once it punctures its victim, that glandular tissue is disrupted and it expels the neurotoxin. It's a protein-based neurotoxin. And it's incredibly painful. It causes mostly just extreme pain and extreme swelling. It'll go away after, I mean, it depends on the person, but 6 to 8 hours normally the pain will stop. And it is you can denature the venom with heat. If you get stung, immediately immerse your hand in the hottest water you can stand without further injuring yourself, because that is going to break down that protein. So, just so you know. A lot of people ask me, why don't we train our native predators to eat lionfish? And it seems like a really simple solution. It would be great, because then we wouldn't have to go down there and try and get them all. You know, they have a much larger range than we do. However, there are a couple problems with this thinking. One, our native predators haven't evolved to eat lionfish. They are still affected by the venom also. It is not good for them. It is not healthy for them to eat lionfish. So some people, backtrack. We did a study, Dr. James Morris in the NOAA lab in North Carolina did a study, and he wild caught a couple different of our big native predators. He caught a Goliath grouper, a red grouper, a gag grouper, and a black sea bass. He caught them, he brought them back to his lab, put them in their own little aquariums, made sure they were nice and comfy, and then starved them for 3 days. Science is kind of brutal sometimes. And then he took a little tiny lionfish and he dropped it in each tank to see what would happen, and he just observed. How many of you think those fish were just so hungry that they ate it right away? How many of you think that they didn't want anything to do with that lionfish? They didn't want anything to do with that lionfish. There was an aerator that was circulating through the tank, and every once in a while that lionfish would kind of just like float by our big scary predator fish, and they would try to back up in the tank. Not only did they not eat it, they were kind of scared of it. Our native predators aren't used to these fish, and they have no reason to try to ingest them. They know that they're harmful. Even with this, some people in some areas in the Caribbean have started spearing lionfish and then feeding them to native predators. And our native predators, a lot of times they will ingest them, they will eat them, but it's still not healthy. It's still not good for our native predators. Whether they know it or not, all of these fish and sharks, barracudas, eels, they go through a cost-benefit analysis. If they see a dead lionfish, it's a free meal. They don't have to expend any extra energy. So they'll eat it. They might get envenomated, but it was a free meal. This will not train them, like many people think. It will not train them to go expend more energy to chase down a live lionfish just to get envenomated. It's not worth their time. A lot of people have also said, well, if we can train them to eat lionfish, then other species will observe this behavior and they will also start eating lionfish, and it will kind of tip the scales, and then everything will be eating lionfish. I can't really speak for barracuda or eels or Nassau grouper, but I can tell you that sharks do not learn behavior from other sharks. They do not see another shark doing something and then decide, hey, that's a good idea, I'm going to do that too. It is just not a behavior that they have. That's another reason it wouldn't work, unfortunately. It's also very dangerous to us. You're not training lionfish, or you're not training sharks and eels to eat lionfish. You're training them that you are a source of food if you feed them regularly. And this can cause some aggression issues. This man was hunting lionfish, and he had one on his spear, and a barracuda came up and bit his hand. Thankfully, he was wearing a glove, which actually protected his hands. Otherwise, he might not have that finger anymore. Warning, this next image is a bit more graphic, but this young man was also hunting lionfish. He hadn't even caught anything yet. He just had his gear with him, and a large moray eel came and latched onto his hand. That eel actually had to be put down a couple days later because it had gotten so aggressive from people feeding it, and it seeing people as a food source, that they actually had to go down and kill it, which is very unfortunate. So it's not safe for us to be feeding lionfish. There are some places, like in the Turks and Caicos, where they ban lionfish hunting now because some species have gotten so aggressive. So it's hurting the fight against the lionfish populations also. And it's really unhealthy for us, and it's really unhealthy for our native species, like I said. The quality of life for this eel has gone down, even if just for a couple days. That is not good. So, back to why they're so successful a little bit. Lionfish reproduction. I mentioned earlier they reproduce incredibly quickly. This is true. They reproduce very early. They can reproduce before they're 1 year old. If we compare this to our Nassau grouper, they start reproducing at about 7 years old. They spawn in pairs. The females release 2 buoyant egg masses that can hold 30 to 50,000 eggs. Yeah, and they spawn every 2 to 4 days, year round. Yeah, it's a big problem. Yeah, and again, if we compare this to our native Nassau grouper, they don't start spawning until they're about 7, and then they spawn once a year. And that's it. So they reproduce incredibly quickly. And like I said before, their egg masses can stretch great distances. Other invasion factors. They have less competition here, or maybe really no competition, especially for space. They can kind of just boot out lobsters or porcupine fish that are in their space, and they'll take up space. They eat all of our native fish. There are no parasites in their invaded range that will affect them. They are growing faster, like I said, and then there's this idea of genetic vigor. And this is just a theory, but what we believe is that the base population that started this invasion had to be pretty hardy genetically. They had to survive being captured in the Indo-Pacific and then transported to a holding facility, transported to the United States by, I'm not sure, probably boat or something. And then they had to survive in someone's aquarium, where who knows how well they were kept, seeing as they were then carelessly dumped into the ocean as they started this population. So we kind of think that we might be dealing with kind of a genetic superfish because their base population was able to survive so much. That's why they have been so hardy so far in their invaded territory.
So do you think everything they've gone through in that process to get into this area, that these are different than the lionfish, than where they first came from?
We don't think they're different. We just think these are it's kind of like a survival of the fittest thing.
Okay.
You know, some died off when they were first caught, some died as they were being transported, and these were the ones that survived all of the different hardships that they went through. Yes?
Are they solely saltwater inhabitants, or have they gone into freshwater habitats?
Great question. I meant to talk about that earlier, actually, when we were talking about habitats. They are saltwater fish, but they have a very wide salinity tolerance. They've been found 5 miles up the Loxahatchee River. They can survive. I know, it's such bad news all around, I'm sorry. They've been found, up 5 miles up the Loxahatchee River, and they can survive in salinity much, much lower than our normal fish. Our native fish can survive about 35 parts per 1,000, I believe, in salinity, and these can survive in about 5 parts per 1,000. Yeah. So because we can't train our native predators to try and go down and get these, we have to become the top lionfish predator, and there's a couple ways that we encourage this. We really have a responsibility, or I feel that I have a responsibility to go down and try and do something about situations like this. They have really gotten out of control, or situations like this. This is in the Gulf of Mexico. The Gulf of Mexico is quickly becoming one of the largest problem areas for lionfish. So, thankfully, it's not all bad news. Local control can be effective. We've found that if people go out with regularity and they catch lionfish, that their numbers will stay low. So we did another study where we took some of those patch reefs and we removed regularly on them, and then some of them, we just let them go and saw what happened. And what we found over a certain period of time is that on the sites where lionfish were not removed, there was a 50% decrease in our native fish on average. And at the sites where we did remove regularly, there was a 70% increase in our native fish. So this is incredibly encouraging. We're very happy to see this. This means that if people can go to their local reefs or areas that are particularly important ecologically and they can remove lionfish, this will help our native species bounce back from this threat. And it'll help them sustain their populations against all the other threats that they're facing today. Like I said, the key is regular removals. If you can go down and you can remove them, it's kind of like weeding a garden. That's how we say it. It's like weeding a garden. You just have to keep going and keep getting rid of them. We do not believe there's any chance of eradicating this invasive species today. There's just too many of them and they reproduce too quickly. So there's two different methods that we use to collect lionfish. There's spearing and then netting. Either one worked perfectly well. Netting is nice because if it's up against anything that is fragile, if it's up against a sponge or coral, you don't want to spear it, it's bad. So that's what nets are good for. Oh, this is fun. How many lionfish do you guys see in this picture? Just shout it out.
2.
2. There's actually 4. There's 4 lionfish in this picture. Lionfish are an incredibly cryptic species. They like to hang upside down. They like to hide in corals, especially during the day. So they're pretty hard to find sometimes. So obviously there's this big guy here. He's hanging upside down. And then this one. And then you can see the stripes for this guy right here. And then you can just barely make out the fin rays for this one right here. So even though they're colored pretty flamboyantly and they've got those big pectoral fins, they can be pretty hard to find, which is another challenge. Like I said, there's netting. I have a couple of videos to show you how we net lionfish. We use big vinyl nets when we're diving. And you can see the lionfish right here. And you kind of just have to go in slow and block all the exits that you can. And just be patient, because they can move pretty quickly when they want to. Once they realize that they're kind of trapped, they will panic, and 90% of the time they just shoot straight into one of your nets. That's it. They are not very observant or smart fish, which is the one advantage that we do have here. Incredibly unobservant, very easy to catch. Yeah, he's not too happy.
Is that, it was shiny, is that some of its venom coming out or no? Is that
No.
just the camera?
Yeah, I think that's just the camera. Yeah, they can't really expel their venom. It's just more of a passive release once their spine goes into something. And then we also net using smaller mesh nets when we're snorkeling or freediving, and these have a lot less drag, so they're a lot easier to use. And when you're using nets, you want to try and get one right towards the face of the lionfish and the other back towards the tail, because if you go inside to side, they're just going to shoot out. They're too quick. Otherwise, when they try to escape, they just shoot forward, and that's how you get them that way. So that's netting. When you are netting, yes, did you have a question?
I heard they were serving them in restaurants to get them to be a food thing, and then people would catch them and,
Yes.
there'd be an economic benefit to catching them.
Absolutely, yeah. We've been trying to start a market, well, we've been trying to help start a market for lionfish for a while now. There's a lot of challenges to that. One, like you can see, you have to physically go down and catch each one by one. This isn't like long lining, this isn't like a massive fisher. You have to go down and catch each one. Our local spear fishermen, especially in the Keys, we've talked to them a couple of times about, why don't you go catch lionfish? Because you can get a pretty good price for them. But it's just not worth it. They can either go down and catch lionfish and get a pretty good price and risk being envenomated, or they can just go down and catch grouper and snapper like they always have. So it's just a market that has been really slow to catch on. We're still working on that.
What do you do with the fish you catch?
Oh, I eat them. Yeah, they're delicious. They're so good. Very delicious, white, flaky meat. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When you catch them, how do you handle them, clean them, etc. with all the spit barbs?
Good question. Yeah, we handle them very carefully. The best way to hold a lionfish, I don't have my model with me, but the best way to hold a lionfish is just straight across the face. Most of their spines are kind of facing more back, so if you just hold them straight across the mouth, that's the most safe way. We also use puncture-resistant gloves. In a couple of these pictures, you might have seen them, but we have orange gloves and black gloves that are like medical-grade puncture-resistant gloves, and that really helps. But you just have to be aware of where the spines are, what way they're facing, and as long as you don't come in contact with them, you're completely fine.
What do you take off? How do you fillet them?
Well, I mean, their spines are just kind of sticking out of their back and out of their front, so you can just fillet them like any fish. Yeah.
Can you skin them?
Yep, super easy. Yeah. Yeah.
Do the spines break off intentionally?
Not intentionally. They can break off though. They're not super strong. So yes, a couple of people, my boss has had spines break off in their hands before. That is not so great. They can break off, but normally they do not.
Are they barbed?
No. No, they're not going to stay in you, thankfully.
Do they grow back on the fish?
No, they do not. No. If they break off, they're off. Yes.
Are they immune to their own venom?
You know, I don't know. I'm not sure. I've always wondered that because we'll catch them and they'll all be in super close quarters like this. I'm not sure. Yeah. So this is kind of how we collect them if we're diving and netting. If we want a live capture, we'll just bring a dry bag down and very carefully use buddy method to get them in there. Yes.
Is there any medical usage for their venom?
Not that I know of yet. We've talked to a couple of different people in the medical field about maybe looking into it. But no, not yet. I was thinking that it could be used kind of like capsaicin is used for like, you know, muscle pain. I thought maybe that would work, but I have no idea. I don't know. Yeah. And then there's also spearing, which is much quicker than netting. It's a little bit more efficient on time. And I have a video of that too. You can see in this video that you can get incredibly close to the lionfish when you spear them. So there's lionfish, and then you can really, with the spear, you can just get a couple inches away. And they don't move. They are not observant at all. You can get them pretty easily. So you may be wondering, hopefully, how you can help or how you can become a little bit more involved in this problem. And there are a couple different ways. We host Lionfish Derbies. They're single-day competitions where people go out snorkeling or diving, and they catch as many lionfish as they possibly can. They bring them back to us. We measure them, and then we give cash prizes for the largest lionfish caught, the smallest, and the most lionfish caught. And it's a lot of fun. And on these derby days, we have free tastings. We'll make lionfish ceviche, which is delicious. And it's a lot of fun, and it's really educational. A lot of people just come by from the public and see what's going on. So those are a lot of fun. We're going to be having one in Sarasota. It's the only one on this coast this year. Well, of ours, we have, there's other derbies going on that other companies do too, different nonprofits. But we will be having one in Sarasota. I believe it's on July 9th. So if you guys are in the area, come on by. It's a lot of fun. And we found that these derbies are incredibly effective in lionfish population control. We did a study where we found that 70% of the population was removed over a known area, over a 70 square mile area. So that's very significant. Again, that will give our native fish populations a chance to bounce back from this problem. We actually, once we measure all the fish, so we understand all their sizes, we know how many we get in every derby, and then we actually have a model. And we can plug these numbers into a model, and it tells us exactly how many of our native fish species that number of lionfish would have eaten over a year's time. So in the 2012 Palm Beach Derby, we had over 1,000 fish brought in a day. How many of our native fish species do you think 1,043 lionfish would have eaten in a year? A lot. Yes, a lot is a great guess. It is a lot.
How many divers did that take?
In the 2012 Derby, I don't remember, we probably had around 15 to 20 dives. Yeah, not too many. Yeah, so they would have eaten 2 to 8.8 million of our native fish species. So this is another really good reason to have our derbies, because they really do save a large amount of our native fish in that area. These models actually don't even account for growth, so this number could theoretically actually be larger than it is.
What do you do with all those caught fish?
It depends on how many are brought in, but a lot of the times we fillet them up at the Derby and we make ceviche, so we'll use some of them for that. Excuse me. A lot of our Derbies researchers from different universities will come, and they will take samples or they'll take whole fish to do whatever research they're doing at the time. And then a lot of the times we'll donate the rest of the catch to local restaurants. So that people can eat them, so people can taste them. Because again, they're really delicious, and the more demand we have in our local restaurants for lionfish to be plated, the more reason that our spear fishermen and the industry will have a reason to go and actually get them. Yes?
So they're not gonna bite on a hook with a piece of bait on?
They have been known to do that, but they're cryptic fish, so during the day they just kind of hang upside down in coral heads. They're not out, really, they don't hunt until dusk or dawn. People have caught them on hook and line. Actually, the unofficial, biggest lionfish was caught on hook and line at about 300 feet, but it's just not like an efficient method of capture. You're just not going to get that many. Yes?
Do you have any idea how many or how serious a problem is in fine animal and sound right around here?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
I've never seen any.
Never seen any?
In my
That's good.
fishing here, I still feel fine.
Good. Yeah, I mean, I know that the Gulf in general is pretty well invaded, but I couldn't tell you about specific areas.
Is there any way to harvest the biomasses of eggs?
Not really. Not that anyone has come up with so far. The egg masses are translucent, so they're basically invisible. And it's just such a wide invaded region that I just can't imagine with so many lionfish reproducing at such a quick rate over such a large area that you'd be able to get enough that it would really affect or decrease the population. But no one's come up with anything yet. Yes?
Do they only eat other fish and mollusks, or do they eat vegetation as well?
Nope, carnivorous. Yep, just other fish and cephalopods. So again, how you can help? Remove lionfish if you want. It's not that hard, like I showed you actually. Participate in a derby or just come to one of our derbies. They're a lot of fun. They're just fun to be around. Eat more lionfish. If you go to a seafood restaurant, just see if they have it. And if they don't, at least they know that people want it. At least that's in the back of their minds. Again, ask restaurants to serve lionfish. If you go to a restaurant and they don't serve lionfish, give them a hard time. Why not? Why don't you serve lionfish? I would like to know. We have a lionfish cookbook. It's good for other fish too, but we just came out with the 2nd edition, and it has 16 new recipes from chefs all over the region. It's a lot of fun, and it's actually really delicious. If you can go to a market and find lionfish, you can try these recipes. One of my favorites is the blackened lionfish. And then also patronize restaurants that do have lionfish. We have a list on our website, and I looked, and the closest one to Sanibel is an hour and a half south. But it's CJ's on the Bay. I don't know if any of you have been there, but they do serve lionfish fairly regularly. So if you're ever down in that area.
Where is it?
Marco Island? Yeah.
What's the closest comp in a fish?
The closest.
The texture and
Oh, hogfish.
hogfish?
Similar to hogfish. Yeah, hogfish is good. Also, there's lionfish jewelry. You can look it up online. There's a couple different, I think in Belize there's a couple artists, and in Bahamas there's a couple different artists. It's very pretty. And like us on Facebook if you have Facebook. We do too, and we'll keep you updated on the latest about the derbies and about all the research we're doing. Yeah, and thank you very much for listening to my talk.
Are there any other questions? So again, thank you. It takes everybody to do the thing. So I did ask at the Lazy Flamingo, this was last year, and about a month later I walk in and he said, did you see the special? And it was lionfish. So I think the more we can ask, like she said, the more they think, oh, well, maybe we should start serving this, and maybe we should start finding people to get it for us and that sort of thing. But it takes everybody working together to make an impact. So maybe we'll have a derby here or something.
That would be great.
But thank you, everybody, for caring and being a part of this. And our next